Hello, and welcome to The Writing Coach. I'm your host, author and writing coach, Kevin Johns. On this podcast, I speak with the instructors, editors, coaches, and mentors that help writers and authors create their art, build their audience, and sell their work. On this episode, I speak with book marketing expert, Fauzia Burke.
Writer in its natural habitat, I finally got it.
I don't believe in drills. As a former teacher, I believe in authentic writing and really getting into your story.
I think it's each one of our responsibilities that when we learn a particular craft, I think it's kind of your responsibility to share it so that we can take storytelling to a new level.
My mom doesn't understand. My dog just doesn't seem to get it when I talk to him. But when I go to my mastermind group, they get it. They understand. We speak a common language.
Keep writing, keep creating, never ever stop. Life doesn't stop, so we gotta keep on creating to continue creating the life that we want to create.
You're listening to The Writing Coach, 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 The Writing Coach.
Hello, dear listener, and welcome back to The Writing Coach. It's your host, Kevin Johns here. We're going to talk about book marketing in today's episode because I am speaking with Fauzia Burke. Fauzia has spent her entire professional career in book marketing and publicity. And as a result, she's a sought-after digital marketing expert, consultant, and speaker. And she is about to launch a new book next week called Online Marketing for Busy Authors. She's combined over 20 years of professional publishing and book marketing expertise to make online branding not only doable, but fun for any author who's writing or releasing a book. It's a really great conversation, especially if you're new to book marketing. In this talk, Fauzia describes why authors so often struggle with branding and marketing, how the internet has opened up direct contact between authors and readers in a really great way, when she believes authors need to begin the marketing process, why social media is as much about listening as it is about putting content out there. The impact of monitoring analytics can be really important. How authors can avoid burnout when implementing a long-term marketing strategy, and much, much more. She's a real expert on this stuff. So let's just dive right into that conversation. So today on the podcast, I've got Fauzia Burke. Fauzia, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Kevin. I'm so excited to be here, and I've listened to your show before, and you guys do a great job. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. And also thank you for sharing with us an advanced copy of your book, which I was really excited to take a look at. Do you want to let the listeners know a little bit about the book you're getting ready to launch?
Yes. I just wrote a book called Online Marketing for Busy Authors, and it's sort of an introductory book to all things online marketing for authors. And, I really wrote it for authors who've been dragging their online marketing feet, as it were, and really just needed to know a little bit of guidance, of big picture as to what to do, what not to do, some good advice in terms of where to spend their time and money and effort. So that's kind of why I wrote it. I really wrote it for my clients. I've been doing online publicity and marketing for 20 years. And in some ways, I feel like I'm answering the same questions over and over again. So I'm hoping that this book will help a lot of people.
Yeah, I think there's so many free resources out there on the internet that authors can look up and read blog articles on or watch videos. But the problem is it gets really overwhelming really quickly. And I think what you've done really well in this book is put together a perfect beginner level introduction to the topic, right? Where people aren't going to feel overwhelmed, where people aren't going to feel like there's 100 different strategies coming at them at once. It's a really reasonable kind of step-by-step walk through the world that, an introduction to the world of online book marketing, right?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for noticing that, because I really, my ego in the beginning when I started writing this book, I thought, let me tell them about this and this and this. And, you just feel like you want to show everything that, show off almost, and I think some of the material online can feel that way. It just feels a little overwhelming. But, authors that I wrote this book for don't really want to be full-time marketers. If they wanted to be marketers, they would have been. They're different. They want to write novels or they want to write their, nonfiction books, and they know they have to do marketing, but it does not need to take over their life. So my idea was to really give people a chance to make smart decisions, and, have a plan. I think that was really important to just take it one step at a time. There's checklists in the book and there's a lot of advice in it. And it is very reasonable. I think that's a great word to use. I really worked hard to make it a reasonable process.
I think marketing can be difficult for a lot of people, especially in the artistic realm. And I think from what I've seen, authors in particular really struggle with marketing their books and branding themselves. Why do you think it is that authors struggle with that?
Well, it's not, we don't want to be Coca-Cola. All of us feel like that. It puts us on the spot. It makes us feel like we're uncomfortable because we're always trying to brag about ourselves. There's kind of a fine line between building a brand and bragging and annoying everyone. So I do understand the hesitation. I have it too. A lot of us, but I think one of the things that I've said in the book is that, if you do good work, the work should help do that part. You shouldn't have to be, hey, well, look at me all the time. You really should put your best foot forward and put good work out there, be generous. And some of that discomfort with bragging sort of goes away because you're actually helping people. So I think you just have to sort of change your mindset. But I do understand it. I completely get that it's not an easy thing to be talking about yourself all the time.
And this is not a new realm for you. This is a world you've been in for almost 20 years now, right? This world of book marketing. So I'm curious, how has book marketing changed in those, almost 2 decades that you've been working in this industry?
No. How much time do we have? Well, I think I think the most fundamental change, which is why I got into this business, was that for the first time, the internet allows us to have direct access to our readers. That's something we never had before. In publishing, we sat around and talked about, I wonder who the audience is. I wonder what they'll think. I wonder what they'll read. I wonder if they'll like the cover. And then suddenly the internet opened up the whole audience to us, and we could just ask them, what do you think of this cover? That kind of connection, that kind of interaction with readers is really what's been the biggest, most fundamental change in marketing, is that we have access to our readers and our consumers, and that's the most fundamental change. But then over time, we've gotten all these different tools. It started off with email and then became, web-centric. So then we were talking about websites, and now it's social media, and now the video is really taking off and podcasting is taking off. So I feel like all of the changes are really sort of tools, but the shift is really about going from not having access to each other and not being able to talk to each other to finally being in the same room and being able to really exchange ideas.
So what then do you tell the authors who are perhaps reluctant to engage with social media and who perhaps aren't used to having that kind of access to readers and might actually be intimidated by it?
Yeah, a lot of authors are intimidated by it. And, they obviously feel like they don't have time and they don't know what it's going to be like. And, because they haven't been on, someone had told them that, Twitter is all about people sharing their breakfast stories. And, there's all this they're sort of, I feel, misled. But one of the things that I say to them is that, it gives you a chance to, writing, as you know, because you're a writing coach, it's a very solitary experience. And most people get kind of, feel lonely. So this is an opportunity to sort of step out, talk to other people, see what they're doing, hear from them. It's a really social activity. It's really amazing. And the other thing I tell them is that, you just need to think about writing to one person, the person that you would love to mentor, someone who you'd like to have a communication with, someone you'd want to talk to, and then let the other parts follow. It doesn't have to be, a lot of times I think authors feel very sort of hesitant because they don't know what to say and how to say it and which platforms to use. And, everyone they talk to tells them they need to be on Pinterest and Instagram and making videos and going on Facebook. And I think they get so much misdirection that it can feel very overwhelming. But generally, I tell authors to pick 2 platforms that they do like, that they are comfortable on, because that's the step 1. And then to start small and not worry about the number of followers, just, basically be concerned about the kind of engagement they have rather than the number of followers they have.
So you mentioned, picking 1 or 2 media platforms and kind of focusing on them. At what point in the book writing process does an author need to start engaging with people via social media? I'm guessing it's not something they want to dive into, the day after the book is published.
Or the day before.
before.
No, I would say it's almost the ideal scenario would be that you start when you have an idea for the book. Because I think that if you engage in social media at that time, your book will be a better book because you'll read what other people are saying, you'll hear what the concerns are for people, you'll see what works and what doesn't work for people, and you just start the process. It doesn't have to be a, buy my book kind of process. It's really sort of just kind of building a rapport with people and starting that conversation. But, I have seen that for social media to really pay off, it can take as much as 18 months to 2 years. So it's not something you do, 3 months before the book comes out and go, okay, well, every tweet is going to lead to a sale, because it doesn't. So I would say as soon as you have an idea for the book, as soon as you feel like this is the community you want to work in, if you're going to be working on a mystery book, then start joining community online about mystery readers and mystery writers and really get, delve into it and don't feel like it's about selling a book, because it never is, but it's about making your book better.
Can you expand on that a bit? What do you mean by that? It's not about selling the book, it's about making the book better.
Well, the thing is that if you think of social media as a one-way bullhorn kind of thing where you're just talking and hoping that, people are so impressed with what you've said, or your tweet has just been so amazing that they're going to go out and buy your book. I haven't seen that work. That's really not how things work on social media. It's as much about listening as it is about talking. And so when you listen, your book will be better because you'll listen to the audience and you'll see maybe a plot line that doesn't really work for people. Or I was recently following a thread on, I think Facebook or Twitter, I don't remember, but, following a thread about an author saying that he wrote about Navy SEALs, but he didn't really have any experience with them. And he made a mistake in terms of mentioning something about the weapon and whether it had a safety or not. And, people came back and sort of said, oh, you got that wrong. And he learned from that. And so those are the kinds of things, if you're going to be talking about, the police work that maybe you don't have access to, being involved with other authors who have that experience will make your book better.
Have you worked with both traditionally published authors and self-published authors?
I have predominantly worked with traditionally published authors. That's really where my background is in traditional book publishing. So that's sort of how all my clients have come to me. But I have worked on some self-published authors as well, but predominantly it's been traditionally published.
So in that traditional publishing realm, is there increasing pressure on authors to take on these marketing tasks themselves?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. That's across the board. I think the self-published authors get that. And, in fact, they're much more savvy. I've noticed how savvy they are on their online marketing and how many relationships they already have by the time the books come out, how savvy they are about writing multiple books and having a series of books. And, there's a lot of things that self-published authors are doing that are in some ways surpassing, their marketing skills are definitely surpassing some of the traditionally published authors. I think for traditionally published authors up till this point, they really felt like the publisher would sort of step in and do some of this work. And what we're all finding out is that publishers are inundated as well, and they've got a lot on their plate, and authors really have to pull their weight and have to do the branding part themselves. It's ideal if they come to the table with the publisher and say, here's my assets, and the publisher can say, here's our skills and assets, and then we can bring them both together.
So you talk about sometimes social media strategies taking, up to 18 months or 2 years or more to really pay off. And we're discussing a world where there's increasing pressure on traditionally published authors and obviously self-published authors to take on this marketing work themselves. And something that you touch on in the book that I was impressed with is this idea of burnout. So for an author listening to this, knowing they need to do the marketing work themselves, knowing they need to take their brand online, but also knowing they probably have 2 years of work ahead of them. How do you recommend approaching that long-term marketing work online without facing kind of the burnout and frustration that can come from working really, really hard and maybe not seeing a lot of results within as quick a time frame as an author might like?
Yes, like overnight.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, the reason I brought that up is because obviously every client that I work with, everyone that I talk to is feeling it. And it's a lot of work, extra work that they didn't have to do a decade ago. So I totally appreciate it. Here are a few things that I tell them. One is if you build in your marketing into your regular day and process, it'll feel less as an outside job and more as part of the process. So going back to that idea where you're listening and talking and being part of the community, if you're doing that, then yes, you're also marketing, but you're also learning about the community and you're also engaging with people. So you're maybe feeling less lonely, but it's becoming more a part of the day rather than, oh my gosh, it's 6 p.m. and now I have to spend an hour on my online marketing. That kind of stuff really feels much more artificial and feels very alien to people. So I think increasingly, one of the things that work is just to drive that throughout the day. So some of my clients are very comfortable using their phones and enjoy Instagram a lot. And so they just use it throughout their day. And in a way, they are doing online marketing, but it doesn't feel that way because it's easy and comfortable for them. Some of my clients are really wonderful cooks and they're working on a cookbook. And so they're on Pinterest a lot and sharing resources, but also encouraging other people. And so, yes, they're doing marketing, but it doesn't feel like, some alien thing that someone has insisted that they do. So just sort of finding the right audience, finding the right tools, and then using them throughout the day so it doesn't feel like a separate job. I think that helps a little bit with burnout for sure, because it doesn't feel as alien. The second thing I would say is that, yes, everybody's impatient and everybody wants to put in this work and wants it to work. So the one thing that I would say is that it's really important to keep an eye on data. Look at the analytics on your website, look at the analytics on your social media feeds, look at what's working and double down on what's working and then ditch the things that are not working. So for example, one of my clients was blogging for this one site and it was a lot of work for him and, he was sort of feeling the burnout from it and feeling like people weren't really responding and he wasn't seeing the benefit of it. So I just asked him, I said, well, how's the traffic coming in from that blog to your website? And he said, oh, I never looked at that. Well, that's sort of a problem because, you want to make sure that the effort that you're making is actually resulting in increase in your online visibility and your marketing. So whenever, every 3 months, I sort of do this with my clients and I think everybody should do it for themselves. Every 3 months, assess all of the things that you're involved in and see which ones are working. So are they increasing engagement for you? Are you having more people follow you and respond to you? Is the engagement higher? Is there traffic coming in from your website? Look at all of the data points that you can, and even introductory people should be able to do this because it helps you make a decision about where to blog, where to post messages, when to post messages. Those are really important. So I would say those two things would probably help the situation a lot.
So we've been talking about authors who are perhaps reluctant to engage in online marketing, but there's probably increasing numbers of younger writers who are growing up very social media savvy and who are, diving into it full throttle. I'm wondering, are you seeing common mistakes being made among new authors who are diving into social media marketing or online marketing?
I feel like, in a way, even if they make mistakes, they sort of come back from it. It's a very collaborative experience in my opinion. And I think, yes, there is some eagerness and maybe people are posting faster than they should, or, they're tweeting things that maybe they shouldn't. Certainly drunk tweeting is not a good idea. There are certain things that I think being young allows them to sort of, be enthusiastic and try different things. But to be honest with you, I think they can recover from it. They apologize pretty quickly. I've noticed they seem to understand the fluidity of the medium and respond to it in a very positive way. So I think it's all positive. I think the people who are doing it and, can figure things out on their own and are really using it as a community building exercise, I don't really see a whole lot of things that I think they're doing wrong. I mean, I think even if they do things wrong, they apologize and move forward from it. So I think it's all exciting and wonderful, and I'm happy to see it.
Something you touch on in the book, which was a really interesting learning lesson for me as I was building my brand as an author and as a writing coach, just this idea of authenticity, right? I think people new to marketing think marketing is about, tricking people into buying something or convincing people something that you're not. But I think more and more in the internet age, it's all about authenticity in branding. And that's something you touch on in the book.
Well, it comes back to that idea of burnout. If you pretend to be someone you're not, you're going to burn out. It may take a month, it may take 2 months, it may take a year, but at some point you're going to be exhausted from trying to be someone else. So being yourself, it just allows you to not only have a more authentic experience with other people, but it allows you to be yourself. And that's, not only is it a gift, I think it's a necessity, because we really can't fool ourselves. I mean, we may be able to fool other people, but I don't think we can fool ourselves for that long.
Absolutely. Something I wanted to touch on that didn't come up in the book, but that I think is a pretty big misconception that I've seen is the idea that online marketing means free marketing. And I think there's a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of low cost opportunities to build an audience and, market yourself as an author and market your books online. But at the same time, I think there's a reality that at a certain level, if you want to reach a certain level of success, there's going to need to be a financial investment in the marketing of your books and your brand. So I was wondering if you could speak to that a bit, this idea of, how far can you really get on a low budget, and at what point do authors need to say, hey, I need to invest in myself as a brand and really put some money into the marketing of my books?
Yeah, I think that's a really smart question, and I appreciate you asking it. Budget, I did not mention the budget in the book, and I think you're right to call it out and say, how do we manage this? Because when people think of Facebook, they think, oh, that's just free. And as you know, our time is not free. So if you're spending time on social media, if you're spending time writing blogs, none of that is free. You're definitely making some choices in terms of how else you could have been spending your money and your time. So I do agree with you that it may feel free just because it's all your time, but every time you spend on social media, all the time you spend on social media, it's certainly, you're taking it away from something else. You're maybe taking it away from something where you could have made money. So it is important to think about that. Today authors are really business owners. The book is their product. They're a business owner, and nobody would ever think that they can launch a business without having a smart marketing strategy and a marketing budget. It doesn't have to be a huge budget. I've obviously worked with authors who've had pretty substantial amount of money to spend on their book, but it's not just for the book. It's really about other opportunities that come to them, speaking engagements, consulting, coaching, other things that can come from that kind of marketing, not just the book sales. So whether it's a small budget or a big budget, you do need to set some money aside and certainly some time aside. And both of those things are, depending on what you're doing, could be, money might be more easier to spend in some cases than time. It is true for many of my clients. It's true for me in some cases. I certainly don't want to be like designing graphics because it would take me, hours and hours where a freelancer could do it in an hour. So you have to make choices about where to put your time and your money. But I would go back to that idea of looking at the analytics. There's no reason to dump a ton of thousands of dollars into some idea without actually testing it first. So, if you want to do Facebook advertising, fabulous, but you can start with $20 a day. And if it's working, you can double down on it. If it didn't work, you can ditch it and try something else. If you're thinking about doing publicity with someone and hiring a firm, you definitely want to make sure it's the right firm for you and for your goals, and that the person has the experience. There's a lot of people who are, I think you're right about that, there's a lot of new people in the marketplace with not a lot of experience. So it's really important to check and see what people's experiences are, and not just what they say they've done, but what they can show that they've done, how they can demonstrate their successes.
So the book is obviously full of a ton of great tips there. I mean, the thing is jam-packed with it. If there was maybe one or two things that you want listeners of the podcast, which is primarily a lot of aspiring authors listening to this, as well as published authors, what's one or two tips that you could give to them?
I would say the one thing I would say is, to start as soon as possible. I think that's a mistake that a lot of people make. They think that everything happens in phases, and so the writing phase is, phase one, and then you work on the production and you get the book ready, and then you start looking at marketing. And I don't think that's a really smart idea. You really want to be thinking about marketing all through your writing process, because then you'll be building that brand. And then, yes, you can have a launch strategy, but you definitely want to have a branding and a marketing plan throughout the process. So it isn't something you can put off and come back and then, do at the last minute. And then the other thing I would say is that it's so important to engage with people and not think of social media or online marketing as really just a one tweet, one sale ratio. Listen to people, be generous, have an attitude where it's not just about selling your book. That attitude of get rich quick schemes. I've seen them online, people using SEO to sort of manipulate who comes to their website and, whether they can be number one on Amazon for an hour. And none of those things, I've done this for a long time. None of those things really matter in the end. So having a more consistent long-term strategy, you can have a launch strategy that helps you boost things, but overall, when the boost is over, you're still going to have to go back to working on your brand and working on your books and promoting them. So just kind of have more of a long-term and a more authentic approach to marketing.
Perfect. So Fauzia, if people want to pick up the book, where can they go to learn more about it, to purchase it? And when it's not out yet, is it?
It's coming out April 19th. So
all right.
19 days from now.
Amazing.
And it's available anywhere, all bookstores and, certainly Amazon, Barnes & Noble and Apple. But it's available in bookstores as well. There's lots of independent bookstores that have copies of the book. So I hope you'll go out and support your local independent bookstores as well.
And the name of the book is Online Marketing for Busy Authors.
It is indeed. Yes. Thank you so much.
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed it, as I enjoyed speaking with you today. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show and chat with me today. Your book launch is 2 weeks away. I'm sure it's only going to get crazier for you these next couple of weeks. So thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come speak with us.
Oh, my gosh. It's such a pleasure. And, I really wrote this book to help authors, and speaking to you is another way of doing it. So I'm grateful for the opportunity. Thank you.
There you have it, my interview with book marketing expert and author Fauzia Burke. Fauzia's book, Online Marketing for Busy Authors, comes out on April 19th. So I'll include a link to that in the show notes for this episode so you can be sure to pick up a copy. Thanks again for listening. This is your pal, author, and writing coach, Kevin Johns, signing off. I'll see you next episode of The Writing Coach.